Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
These words were obviously meant for Xia Jinqi. She paused for a moment before coming back to her senses. She prevaricated, "Just find a random place and let me get off, too." What she meant was that she wanted to be alone and did not want to be with Yan Jun second. And when she said this, there were more than one person who was surprised. Although Yushi was staring straight ahead, all her attention was focused on the back row point, too. When she received the call, she thought that President Yin was going to take his wife out for dinner. But now, it seemed that it was not that simple. Yin Jun was not surprised, as if he had already expected it. What kind of secret could it be to do things with him? He closed the document and looked sideways at the woman sitting upright beside him. He was determined to make things difficult for her. Don't you want to be too ostentatious? Okay, let's get out of the car together, too. Big boss, being with you is ostentatious enough? Okay, too. No need, no need. I can get out of the car alone. Xia Jinqi hurriedly shook her head, afraid that this person would really get out of the car with her point, too. How can I trust you alone? Yin Jun smiled unrestrainedly. He held Xia Jinqi's little hand, which was so nervous that it was sweating, and pulled her in front of him. Mrs. Yan, too. Xia Jinqi could hear the meaning behind the last three words as she gnashed her teeth. Xia Jinqi was caught off guard when she suddenly met his eyes, which were as dark as ink. Xia Jinqi felt a slight suffocation in her heart. This person, could it be that he had already guessed something and had been teasing her this whole time? 2. In the front row, Yushi had already passed her duties as a secretary and glanced at the rearview mirror point, too. But it was just that one glance that deeply pierced her heart. She had worked by President Yan's side for so long, but she had never seen him so close to any woman point, too. And she had never heard him use such a gentle tone with anyone. At that moment, she was really jealous of Xia Jinqi. Why was it that a woman who had never met President Yan, just because of her family background, was able to leap through the Dragon Gate and marry the man she had been guarding for several years, too? It wasn't fair. This world was really too unfair. As for Xia Jinqi, she didn't have the time to care if someone was coveting her husband. She couldn't even protect herself, too. If this man insisted on following her, then what should she do? She couldn't bring Yin Jun with her, right? Moreover, too, didn't she hear in the past that after marriage, the man would change? He wouldn't come home all day and wouldn't even see the woman's face? Why was Yin Jun always sticking by her side? Didn't she have to work, too? It was like a piece of candy that she couldn't get rid of. How could Xia Jinqi know that in order to give a young couple the most space to get married, Yin Sheng had specially let Yin Jun rest for a few more days before going to company point, too? Therefore, Yin Jun would have extra time to accompany her for the next few days. After waiting for a long time without receiving an answer from Xia Jinqi, Yin Jun directly made the decision for her. Stop the car, he ordered lightly, and the car soon stopped by the roadside point, too. 2 bodyguards got out of the car behind them and opened the car door for them. Xia Jinqi was stunned. Was he for real? Get out of the car. The culprit's lively tone sounded point, too. Xia Jinqi gritted her teeth. She had no choice but to get out of the car first. Later, she would find an opportunity to drive the car. After the 2 of them got out of the car, the convoy drove off in an orderly manner. The remaining 2 stood on the bustling street, staring at each other. Xia Jinqi looked at the man in front of her and gnashed her teeth in hatred, too. We're only in a political marriage. Don't we have any freedom at all, too? When they agreed to get married, their goal was to break away from the Xia family and have more control over their own lives. Why did she feel that it was even more troublesome now? Even wherever they went, there was actually someone following them. 2. Yin Jun stood tall and straight as he listened to her complaints. He was not angry at all. Instead, he leaned leisurely against the greenery by the side of the street and looked down at her. On the first night of our wedding, my wife was wandering alone by the side of the street. It also affected my personal image, too. In fact, he had only wanted to tease her a little. Who knew that they would actually get off the car together in the end? Even he could not explain it clearly. His gaze was always on her. He could not care about anything else for the time being. Xia Jinqi gritted her teeth. All right, what he said was reasonable, but, 2. I will be especially careful not to let others find out. 2. The night before our wedding, you also promised me. But the next day, you still ran away from the wedding. He boldly and righteously exposed her point too. Xia Jinqi. Fine. She was the one who lost her integrity. Xia Jinqi was so angry and frustrated that she hung her head dejectedly. In Yin Jun's eyes, she suddenly felt a little cute. It was nothing. She just felt that it was quite cute. Remember when I asked you if you knew what marriage was? He suddenly opened his mouth with a slightly serious expression point too. It's a grave. Xia Jinqi snorted in a fit of pique. Right now, all she could think of was how to get rid of him, too. Yin Jun furrowed his beautiful brows and directly ignored her answer. I'm your husband. No matter where you go or what you do, I have the right to know, too. When Xia Jinqi heard this, she immediately became angry again. You only know how to restrain me. What about you? Don't you have a hot secretary by your side, too? Yin Jun. A hot secretary, too. You she? She had no impression of her at all. After yelling, Xia Jinqi realized that she had lost her composure. Moreover, why did she mention Yushi too? It was really a misstep too. In short, when she thought of the beautiful secretary who was eyeing Yin Jun like a tiger, she felt very unhappy. Ahem. What I mean is that my matter is a little complicated. I can't explain it clearly in just a few words. Can I tell you next time? 2. She was really in a hurry right now. 2. Seeing that Yin Jun's attitude had softened and that his black eyes were beginning to show hesitation, Xia Jinqi suddenly had an idea. Could it be that this man was a pushover? 2. Why didn't she try to act coquettishly? 2. Taking a deep breath, Xia Jinqi took a small step forward. She reached out and tugged at Yin Jun's sleeve, saying gently, I really have my difficulties. I can't tell you, but I promise that I won't damage your image, okay? Yin Jun, even though she looked like she was a honey trap, but 2, Yin Jun's heart still rippled uncontrollably. Like a soft feather, it gently fell from the sky and touched his heart, and then everything became soft. It didn't matter. He didn't really plan to follow her anywhere. However, he didn't want to let her off so easily. How could he send a lamb back intact? Bribe me, and I'll give you 3 hours. His voice was low and emotional, and it was slightly hoarse. Anyone who heard it would feel their heart go weak. It was as if they would be in a mess if they touched it. How do I bribe them? Xia Jinqi was a little hesitant as she looked at him in confusion point 2. What do you think? Yin Jun raised his eyebrows and looked at her as if he was looking at a fool. How do newlyweds bribe them, too? Xia Jinqi's face immediately turned red. She realized what he meant. Did he want her too? If he did that, it would seem like they were really a loving couple. After hesitating, Yin Jun leaned over to her ear and whispered, Don't misunderstand. I just want the surrounding audience to see what they want to see too. The surrounding audience? At this moment, Xia Jinqi looked around and found that there were a lot of people surrounding them. They were all looking at her and Yin Jun, and many people were taking pictures of them with their cell phones. So, what Yin Jun said just now was just a show. 2. Huff, it gave her fright. She almost thought, too. Forget it, forget it. They were both fake couples anyway. A kiss was nothing, as long as it gave her 3 hours of freedom. You can't go back on your word. Xia Jinqi pouted and added. Then, she tiptoed slightly and kissed his cheek point too. Is lightly touched, light as dust, can fall on the heart of Xia Jinqi, but heavy as Qin Jin point 2. Frequent ringing around the ka-ka sound, Xia Jinqi called back to reality. Now can it? 2. N. Yin Jun nodded his head, as if the handsome face of heaven floating a touch of smile like the spring breeze. He took Xia Jinqi's hand, through the crowd. Yangchang away point 2. After the two of them left, the crowd of onlookers still did not retreat for a long time. 2. Wow, handsome men and beautiful women. So eye-catching, too. Why do I look a bit like the heir of Yan's group? I heard he just got married. Is that the 4th daughter of the Xia family? 2. I think so. She doesn't look like she's been taking drugs for years. Did you see her tiptoeing and kissing Yin? She's so cute, too. Yes. The report also said that they were in a political marriage. I think they were clearly in love, too. Listening to the sound coming from behind, Xia Jinqi suddenly had a little sigh. It's the first time I've been recognized by so many strangers in public, too. It was all because of this man beside her, wasn't it? She really didn't expect him to have such great charm. In his days, Yinjun had already let go of her hand. Meet me here in 3 hours. Let's go home together, too. Hearing this, Xia Jinqi realized that Yinjun had unknowingly brought her to a hotel. Did he mean to give her 3 hours of free time and then go home together? Xia Jinqi instantly said, "Okay, thank you, too." With that, she turned around and entered the crowd without any reluctance. Yinjun shook his head helplessly and smiled faintly. He really thought of him as a flood beast. However, how should he spend the past 3 hours? He originally wanted to invite Feng Xiaoan out for a drink, but he unexpectedly bumped into Xia Jinqi's second sister. Young Master Yin? What a coincidence! We met here. Xia Tianjiao had just exited the hotel's elevator when she saw the handsome Yin Jun as soon as she entered the hall. She couldn't help but approach him. Before he married Xia Jinqi, Yin Jun had already known her family, so he naturally recognized this woman. His phoenix-like eyes narrowed dangerously. He suddenly recalled that Xia Jinqi's wet and disheveled appearance yesterday was the work of this person before him, right? Besides yesterday, the information that was basically investigated showed that Xia Jinqi had received a lot of education from this second sister since she was young in the Xia family. Since he had met her here, he could not disregard the Xia family's reputation. Moreover, he wanted to learn more about his wife from his second sister. He chose a secluded spot in the hall and invited Xia Tianjiao for a cup of coffee. However, Xia Tianjiao looked around and was a little disappointed. There are too many people here. Why don't we go to the private room? In a sealed space, only a man and a woman could have something happen. Yin Jun leaned back on the leather sofa, his thin lips slightly pursed. He replied coldly, "The private room is very inconvenient." Oh, Xia Tianjiao was a little disappointed. When she picked up the coffee cup, she couldn't help but quietly raise her head. The man sitting across from her was really very handsome. She didn't know how much better he looked in person compared to the photo. Moreover, when Xia Tianjiao thought of the betrothal gift that the Yin family gave to Xia Jinqi, she felt her heart itch. If only she could marry into the Yin family. How great would that be? As she thought about it, Xia Tianjiao began to have her own little thoughts. Young Master Yin is really handsome and handsome. He's young and promising. It's such a pity that he married my little sister who doesn't know any better. As she said this, Xia Tianjiao pretended to sigh as she shook her head. Oh, is that so? Why do you say that? Yin Jun was not anxious. Instead, he followed her words and continued to ask. Seeing that Yin Jun had taken the bait and was beginning to be interested in her words, Xia Tianjiao immediately perked up. She began to count all the bad things that Xia Jinqi had said. Sai, fourth sister. She's always been withdrawn since she was young and doesn't like to talk to others. Yin Jun. Doesn't like to talk. Are you sure? Why did he feel that she was unusually lively, especially after he fell asleep? She was simply like a chatterbox. Her brain isn't bright, her education isn't high, and she doesn't know how to dress herself up. Yin Jun. Her brain isn't bright, and she can even fool him. Not only did she run away from the marriage, she even went to some mysterious place at this moment. Most importantly, she also has insomnia. She's been taking sleeping pills all year round. You also know that those things hurt her brain, so she's most likely a fool now. Yin Jun. But those things are vitamin C. According to this method of eating, a certain person's health is very good. Our family feels ashamed at the mention of her. This marriage has really wronged you, young Master Yin. Xia Tianjiao knew the ins and outs of this family marriage. She also knew that Yin Jun seemed to be unwilling to get married in the beginning. In the end, he was forced by the pressure of the family to agree to hold the wedding. Seeing that he was not at home with the bride on the first day of their wedding and came to the hotel to stroll around in the middle of the night, it was clear that he had no interest in Xia Jinqi. Xia Tianjiao seized this opportunity to speak ill of Xia Jinqi. She wanted Yin Jun to hate her even more. It would be best if he saw that she did not care and divorced her. In short, she just could not bear to see any good in Xia Jinqi. How could a good-for-nothing who had been bullied by her since young be better off than her? Yin Jun listened quietly. His hands on the sofa were slowly and rhythmically beating the beat. His deep black eyes were abnormally dark. He was neither sad nor happy. There was almost no expression on his face, making it impossible to guess what he was thinking at this moment. After Xia Tianjiao finished speaking, Yin Jun did not speak for a long time. This made Xia Tianjiao a little worried. She carefully looked up at the man opposite her and could not help but be a little absent-minded. The man's chiseled, handsome face was unusually handsome. Just looking at him like this made people's hearts inexplicably palpitate. Sigh, if only I was the one who married him. She's obviously more outstanding than Xia Jinqi in everything. So why didn't the Yin family choose her? Why must they take a fancy to that idiot? Seeing such a handsome man brush past her just like that. While Xia Tianjiao was immersed in her own world, Yin Jun's thin lips lifted slightly and finally opened his mouth. I heard that she grew up in a circle around the city and never went abroad. Yeah, that country bumpkin is also unwilling to go out. Xia Tianjiao snorted. Speaking of which, she seems to have suddenly become busy in the past half a year, and she often doesn't see anyone. Yin Jun was very keen to catch the main point of Xia Tianjiao's words. Suddenly becoming busy in the past 6 months? Previously, the records of her coming out of seclusion were only 6 months. So, it was very likely that Xia Jinqi's little secret only began in the past 6 months. Does she have many friends? What friends can she have? Only a few of her university classmates still contact her occasionally. Speaking of this, Xia Tianjiao was even more disdainful. Even her friends are so shabby. Hearing Xia Tianjiao's extremely unfriendly tone, Yin Jun's pitch-black eyes sank with a hint of displeasure. After a short conversation, every word Xia Tianjiao said about Xia Jinqi was filled with disdain and contempt. In addition to what he had seen before, one could imagine what kind of treatment Xia Jinqi had suffered during her years in the Xia family. No wonder she was so eager to leave that family. He had said that no matter what kind of life she had lived in the past, since she had married him, she would not let anyone bully her anymore. It was time to deal with those who had bullied her before. Yin Jun narrowed his unusually cold eyes. His expression was unfriendly, and his voice was filled with killing intent. So, before she got married yesterday, you poured ice water all over her? The moment she heard Yin Jun's question, Xia Tianjiao's heart unconsciously trembled. She was so focused on bad-mouthing Xia Jinqi that she almost forgot about this. This, did fourth sister tell on you? Xia Tianjiao's palms were so nervous that they were sweating. The man in front of her suddenly burst out with a powerful aura, bringing with him an indescribable chill and oppression. He pressed against the back of her head, making it impossible for her to raise her head to look at him. Yin Jun snorted coldly. Complain? Xia Jinqi could endure it, but he couldn't. His woman was being bullied like this. Besides being your fourth sister, she is also my wife whom Yin Jun has officially married. Bullying her is equivalent to not putting me in his eyes. Yin Jun spoke coldly and unhurriedly. His voice was not loud, but it was majestic without anger. Xia Tianjiao was stunned by his words. In the entire Rao city, who dared to not put him in his eyes? Young Master Yin, you misunderstand. I. Xia Tianjiao's face instantly turned extremely pale. She didn't know why young Master Yin had changed his expression in the blink of an eye when they were just attacking Xia Jinqi together. She should say something to remedy the situation. At this moment, Xia Chuanxiu, who had just come out of the elevator, happened to see Yin Jun and Xia Tianjiao talking about something, so he walked over. Second sister? Why are you here? Mom was looking for you everywhere just now. Why aren't you going back quickly? Xia Tianjiao only raised her head at this moment. When she saw that it was her third brother who had come to rescue her, she immediately came back to her senses. Really? Then I'll go over first. As she said that, she grabbed her bag and quickly left. Yin Jun didn't say anything to stop her. It was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. He wasn't in a hurry at this moment. Moreover, he had other plans. After Xia Tianjiao left, Xia Chuanqiu did not leave with her. Instead, he sat across from Yin Jun in a friendly manner. In name, he was now Yin Jun's brother-in-law and could be considered a relative. President Yin, how have you been? Xia Chuanqiu first greeted him politely. Regarding this address, he considered it carefully before deciding to still address him as President Yin. According to the rules, he could actually call Yin Jun brother-in-law. However, due to Yin Jun's status, this seniority could be temporarily thrown to the back of his mind. Yin Jun and Xia Chuanqiu had met earlier because of various reasons. Now that they were even closer, it should be a sign that the two parties would be more harmonious in their future cooperation. However, Yin Jun frowned and looked at him unhappily. Jinxi has been bullied by you guys since she was young. After all, he was someone he used to know, so Yin Jun naturally did not speak so politely. Moreover, Xia Chuanqiu was intentionally helping Xia Tianjiao out just now. It was not that he cannot see it. Xia Chuanqiu was stunned for a moment. Then, he smiled and looked at Yin Jun. Already protecting her? At first, he was worried that little Qi would be bullied when she married into the Yin family. Now that Yin Jun was interrogating her, it seemed like he was protecting little Qi. As for the Xia family, a few years ago, he rarely went home. He did not care about his little sister and did not know what she had gone through. Today, he called his mother and second sister over to talk to them and returned Xia Jinqi's island and shopped to her. Who knew that after they finished talking, he would see Yin Jun and Xia Tianjiao chatting when he came out. He had spoken just now because he didn't want to see the relationship between the two families deteriorate. He didn't have the intention to help Xia Tianjiao. There was also that basin of ice water. He was thinking about how to help Xiao Qi get it back. Yin Jun's heart was choked by Xia Chuanqiu's words. He came back to his senses in shock. Why was he suddenly so concerned about Xia Jinqi's matter? Whenever he thought about her being bullied, his emotions became quite difficult to control. But even so, he still didn't reveal any of his worries. He continued to say coldly, "Shouldn't I protect the people of my Yin family?" He was indeed the rumored doormat. Anyone could pick him out and bully him. Xia Chuanqiu was slightly stunned by Yin Jun's words. These words didn't sound wrong, but why did it feel strange? But no matter what, seeing Yin Jun's protective manner, Xia Chuanqiu was more or less relieved. Let's go back tomorrow. I will give you and Xiao Qi an explanation for this matter. Xia Chuanqiu smiled. He was already making plans in his heart. Indeed, this second sister of his owed a lesson. They should also know that Xiao Qi is now not only the youngest in the family. She has a backer called Yin Jun behind her. Yin Jun heard this is considered to give up. Originally is the Xia family's matter, by Xia Chuanqiu personally to do, is naturally very good. 2.5 hours later, Xia Jinqi returned to the hotel entrance where she had parted with Yin Jun. She was dressed the same as before, except for a gash on her forehead. The blood had been wiped clean, and a simple band-aid was applied. Her bangs hung down, covering most of it. Xia Jinqi briefly tidied up before walking into the lobby of the hotel. She was not unfamiliar with this hotel at all. It was the family business of the Xia family. Many family gatherings in the past had also been eaten here. She swept her gaze across the entire lobby and found Yin Jun in a slightly secluded spot. Sitting opposite him was her third brother, Xia Chuanqiu. Third brother, Xia Jinqi was very surprised. She would never have thought that she would run into him here. Moreover, he was sitting at the same table as Yin Jun. There was a pile of documents in front of the two of them. It seemed like they were discussing business. It was already so late. Were they discussing business here? When Xia Chuanqiu heard this, he looked up and saw the surprised Xia Jinqi. He instantly understood. I was wondering why President Yin suggested to talk about business here. So it turned out that he had an appointment with Xiao Qi in advance. They were supposed to talk about the matter tomorrow, but they bumped into each other again. After chatting for a while, they started talking about business. After getting her assistant to send the documents over, the two of them started talking here. Xia Jinqi turned her suspicious eyes to look at Yin Jun, who was standing to the side. Her eyes were a little disappointed. He couldn't have really been waiting for her here for more than 2 hours, right? For some reason, She had a strange feeling in her heart. While Xia Jinqi was in a daze, Yin Jun had already waved at her, indicating for her to go over. Are you done? And I guess so. Her legs couldn't be controlled as she walked in his direction. Xia Jinqi deliberately turned her head to the side, not wanting him to notice the wound on her forehead. However, the more she tried to hide it, the easier it would be for him to notice. Her awkward movements instantly attracted Yin Jun's attention. Her eyes flashed slightly, and she happened to catch a glimpse of the Band-Aid on her forehead. Her straight brows furrowed tightly. He stretched out his hand to push away the fringe on her forehead, but she dodged it. Are you guys talking about business? We're almost done talking, Xia Chuanqi replied. He conveniently sorted out the documents in his hands. It's getting late, so I won't disturb you guys. Xiaoqi, remember to come back early tomorrow. As he spoke, he made a gesture to get up. Since Xia Chuanqiu could already tell that Yin Jun was waiting for Xia Jinqi here, there was no reason for him to stay and be a third wheel. Xia Jinqi was still unable to react to her third brother's words. Where are we going? Back to the gate, Xia Chuanqi replied. Other places were used to returning 3 times, but Rao City's custom was to return the next day. Oh, Xia Jinqi finally remembered that it was time to return the next day. However, she didn't seem to be excited at all. That was a place that she had always wanted to escape from since she was young. There was indeed nothing to be excited about going back. Xia Chuanqi looked at Yin Jun again. Then I'll take my leave first. Happy working with you, President Yin. Yin Jun nodded slightly. Take care. Xia Jinqi sat at the side and listened to the two people's polite conversation. She couldn't help but be curious. What kind of business are you two talking about? Xia Jinqi still didn't understand. Yin Jun was in business, while her brother was in politics. What would they talk about? When Yin Jun heard this, he turned around and looked at her with a deep gaze. There's a project that needs to be signed with the government. His reply was concise and comprehensive. There was no need to hide it from her, nor was there a need to explain in detail. Xia Jinqi seemed to understand, but she didn't. She thought to herself, they just got married, and the two of them already started to benefit each other? Inadvertently, Yin Jun saw the mark on her forehead again. His gaze turned slightly cold as he snapped his fingers at the assistant behind him. The assistant immediately understood and went forward to tidy up the documents on the table. It was only now that Xia Jinqi noticed that the person Yin Jun called over this time was a male assistant, not U11. For some reason, she suddenly asked him, Where's U11? What's wrong with her? Yin Jun frowned and looked at her in confusion. It's nothing. Xia Jinqi coughed dryly and averted her gaze. I thought you would ask her to come. Xia Jinqi herself didn't notice how strange it was for her to suddenly mention Yushi. Yin Jun narrowed his eyes and sized her up for a moment. His gaze deepened slightly. She's just an administrative secretary. She's only responsible for a portion of the document management. Why was she suddenly interested in Yushi? Oh, is that so? Xia Jinqi felt very uncomfortable under Yin Jun's sharp gaze. She hurriedly changed the topic. Could it be that you've been waiting for me here for more than 2 hours? What do you think? Yin Jun gave her a sideways glance. He had already stood up and walked out of the hotel. He also felt that he was acting strangely. He did not know how many people had begged him bitterly, hoping that he would give them a few minutes. He had always ignored them. But at this moment, he had been sitting here for nearly 3 hours for a kiss. He was really getting worse and worse. Xia Jinqi quickly followed him. Her mood was inexplicably a little high. No matter what, her heart was still warm because he was willing to wait for her. When the two of them walked out of the hotel, 3 Lincoln cars were already waiting at the door. The only difference was that Xia Jinqi noticed that Yushi was not in the car. After realizing this, she actually felt a sense of relief. She could not help but turn around to look at the man sitting on her left. He was leaning against the seat with his eyes closed. No one knew what he was thinking about. Can I not go back tomorrow? Xia Jinqi began to hesitate. She did not want Yin Jun to see her being ignored at home. She only wanted to hide herself in such a sorry state. She didn't want to be discovered, especially by him. Reason? Yin Jun suddenly opened his tightly shut black eyes, which happened to meet her disappointed eyes. You know my situation at home. Wouldn't it be troublesome if I went? Xia Jinqi sighed lightly. It wasn't easy for her to leave the place, so how could she be eager to return it? Yin Jun's black eyes darkened slightly as he stared at her. Running away is the behavior of the weak. Since you're destined to not be able to escape, then stand at the highest position and look down on everyone. What he meant was that he wanted her to become strong. So strong that the Xia family would no longer dare to bully her. This was the boldness that a woman like him should have. Xia Jinqi's heart was stifled by his words. Half a year ago, she had also thought of this. So, she chose a completely different path. During this half a year, she had been working hard to become strong enough to leave the Xia family. But before she could become strong, the marriage alliance of the family was already in front of her eyes. Can I do it? She could not help but doubt herself. Don't you still have me? Yin Jun threw out a sentence that was neither too hot nor too hot before he closed his eyes again. Don't forget, you've already married me. I'm your backer. Xia Jinqi suddenly raised her eyes, but she only saw his slightly closed eyes. Did he mean that he was prepared to support her? Of course, she did not forget that they were already married, but she only thought that it was just a formality. No matter what, she would never have thought that he would really help her. No one had ever protected her unconditionally and supported her. In the depths of her heart, an empty corner seemed to be filled with something as soft as cotton candy. Her body became slightly warm, and there was a different kind of excitement. When she returned home, it was already past 11 o'clock. The Yin family, which was shrouded in the darkness of the night, appeared very quiet. Xia Jinqi followed Yin Jun back to the room. After taking a shower, Xia Jinqi asked for disinfectant from a maid. She sat in front of the dressing mirror and tended to her wound. The alcohol stimulated her external skin, causing Xia Jinqi to suck in a breath of cold air in pain. The wound was not wide, but it was a little deep. She was really unlucky. The wound was on her forehead, and it could be seen at a glance. She should not have been injured, but at that moment, Yin Jun's shadow suddenly appeared in her mind. She was momentarily absent-minded, and that was why she was injured. Xia Jinqi put down the cotton swab and put on a new Band-Aid. She could not help but look at herself in the mirror in front of her. Her small face was as big as a palm, and her facial features were still exquisite. It was as if nothing had changed, but it was as if something had quietly changed. Xia Jinqi sighed softly, and she could not help but be a little absent-minded. In fact, she thought that she would not be able to go there tonight. Who knew that not only did Yin Jun help her, but he also waited for her at the hotel for more than 2 hours. She remembered that on the day of the wedding photo shoot, Yin Jun had blocked her in a corner and strangled her tightly, almost taking her life. But after that, he seemed to have changed again. His attitude towards her was like a 180-degree turn. After treating her wound, Xia Jinqi had just stood up when she heard a series of knocks on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Xia Jinqi frowned. Who would come at this time of night? Yin Jun never knocked on the door. As she thought about it, she opened the door. It was Ji Xinyu standing at the door. Mom? What's the matter? Xia Jinqi asked in confusion. Where's Jun? Ji Xinyu first looked behind Xia Jinqi with a sharp gaze, as if she was looking for something. Xia Jinqi moved aside and let Ji Xinyu into the house. He seems to be in the study. The first thing Yin Jun did when he returned home was to shower and change his clothes. Then, he went straight to the study. This child, even after getting married, he still can't stop working. Ji Xinyu shook her head. Then, she held Xia Jinqi's hand and said earnestly, Jinqi, sometimes it's necessary for both parties to take the initiative in this married life. Junair is a good child. You'll know when you see his serious attitude towards work. Xia Jinqi nodded blankly. Could it be that Ji Xinyu came to look for her at this late hour to let her know that Yin Jun worked very hard? Could it be that he wanted her to work hard as well? Ji Xinyu had already put it very tactfully. However, seeing that Xia Jinqi didn't seem to understand it at all, she added a sentence with a hint of disappointment. What Mom means is that you have to take the initiative. After all, giving birth to a child is a matter between two people. Do you understand what Mom means? Xia Jinqi. If she still didn't understand, she would really be stupid. So, was Ji Xinyu here to tell her to take the initiative to do something with Yin Jun? Cough, cough. Mom, we just got married. The child is still early. Xia Jinqi's face turned red, and she choked out a sentence in embarrassment. Silly child, you still have to give birth in the end. In a marriage, you still have to have child. Ji Xinyu tried her best to persuade Xia Jinqi, although she also felt that it was too early for her as a mother-in-law to say these words, but she also knew that Jun did not agree to this marriage in the beginning. It was not easy to get married, and she also wanted Jinqi to hurry up and have a child. Only then would she be able to firmly grasp Jun Heir's heart. Xia Jinqi was already shocked by Ji Xinyu's words. She was just agonizing over how she should get along with Yin Jun, but now she was directly asked to find Yin Jun to have a baby. Seeing that Xia Jinqi was stunned for a long time without saying a word, Ji Xinyu became even more anxious. Jinqi, are you listening to me? I'm listening. Xia Jinqi braced herself and replied, but, Mom, you also know that Yin Jun and I are not in a relationship after all, so what's the big deal? Isn't it popular to marry first and then love later? You look good, and your figure is good too. As the saying goes, women chasing after men are separated by layers of gauze. If you put in more effort, an iron rod will eventually be ground into a needle. Ji Xinyu said one sentence after another. She really wanted to pry open Xia Jinqi's brain and stuff these words into it. She had married Yin Sheng in the same way back then. She understood Xia Jinqi's thoughts, but she was afraid that this child would follow the same path as she did back then, so she couldn't bear to remind her more. In addition, she really wanted to have grandchildren. It was her fortune to be able to see her son, daughter-in-law, and he Mimi. Xia Jinqi wanted to say something to express her hesitation, but just as she opened her mouth to say a word, Ji Xinyu immediately stopped her mouth. I know what you want to say. When I first married into the Yin family back then, my thoughts were the same as yours. But child, you should know that no matter how much you make a fuss after marriage, you are destined to be with him for the rest of your life. Instead of wasting a good time, why don't you seize the opportunity now? What do you think? Xia Jinqi was rendered speechless by Ji Xinyu's words. Moreover, she could tell that Ji Xinyu really hoped that she and Yin Jun would get along well. How could she refuse such kindness? Finally, her heart softened under Ji Xinyu's expectant gaze. Xia Jinqi nodded. Then, I'll give it a try. After receiving Xia Jinqi's affirmative answer, Ji Xinyu finally smiled and patted the back of her hand repeatedly. I knew you were a smart child. MHM. Then hurry up and go. I won't disturb the two of you anymore. You don't have to wake up early tomorrow morning on purpose. No one will blame you. She really thought far ahead. Xia Jinqi nodded perfunctorily. She wanted to get up and send Ji Xinyu to the door, but she didn't expect Ji Xinyu to grab her and drag her directly to the study room. Take the initiative, don't be shy. I believe in you. After saying that, she pushed her into the door. Hey, Mom. Before Xia Jinqi could come back to her senses, she was already in Yin Jun's study room. Just as she was about to leave, Ji Xinyu slammed the door shut. Just as her hand touched the door handle, she felt a cold gust of wind behind her looking at her. Alarms went off all over her body. Xia Jinqi turned her eyes stiffly. Sure enough, she saw Yin Jun, who was only wearing a bathrobe. He had already raised his black eyes from the laptop and was looking at her. Laughing awkwardly, Xia Jinqi instinctively waved at him. Hello. The latter's eyes were as dark as the night, and his tone was cold and arrogant. What's the matter? Nothing, Xia Jinqi blurted out. Then, she remembered Ji Xinyu's words. She coughed lightly and began to find a topic to talk about. You're still working? Yin Jun narrowed his long and narrow eyes. He conveniently closed a document in front of him. If you have something to say, just say it. Your mother asked me to have a child with you. Xia Jinqi roared angrily in her heart. Then, she took a deep breath to calm herself down. Thank you for what happened tonight. Since she had already come in, she might as well thank him. After all, if it weren't for his cooperation, she wouldn't have been able to go out for such a long time in the middle of the night. Initially, Xia Jinqi was just prepared to be polite, but who knew that she would be rebuked by Yin Jun instead. Instead of saying those empty words, "Why don't you tell me where the injury on your forehead came from? I accidentally touched it." Quickly bypassing this topic, Xia Jinqi turned around, not daring to look at Yin Jun again. She originally wanted to turn around and leave, but perhaps her brain had a stroke. Xia Jinqi turned around and asked Yin Jun out of the blue, "Do you want to have a child?" The moment these words were said, the entire room fell silent. The air was filled with an inexplicable awkwardness, as well as Yin Jun's originally slightly paused black eyes looked her up and down for a moment, then ignited clusters of small flames. "You want it?" He didn't answer and asked instead, but his throat was a little dry. No matter what, he was still a normal man, all right? His wife, who had just passed through the door, had brought up the topic of whether or not he wanted to have children with her, which in itself was a kind of teasing. Xia Jinqi smiled helplessly. How could it be your turn? Right now? It should be Ji Sinew who wanted it the most. The reason why she asked Yin Jun this was actually to know what he thought, and then to convince Ji Sinew together. They were still young now, so they wouldn't consider those things. Who knew that she might ask something she didn't mean, but the listener would have an idea. Without giving Xia Jinqi time to think, Yin Jun had already stood up and walked quickly toward her. Furthermore, the closer he got, the closer he got. Speaking of which, you still owe me for last night's wedding night. His heavy breathing brushed against her flushed little face. Wedding night? You. Aren't we having a political marriage? Xia Jinqi was a little flustered. She couldn't withstand the huge pressure from his body and took small steps back. She took a step back, and he took a step forward. His tall figure had always enveloped her. Who told you that a political marriage doesn't require a bridal chamber? His gaze was like a hook, as if it could lock her soul. Xia Jinqi swallowed unconsciously as he stared at her. Her mind was a little empty. It seemed that no one had ever said that. Did you just say that you want to have a child? He directly ignored her silence and asked one sentence after another. I didn't. What I meant was, I asked if you wanted to. Xia Jinqi finally came back to her senses and hurriedly shook her head, wanting to clarify. She was clearly asking him, how did it become that she wanted it? She didn't want it, all right? Ba. What did she mean by wanting it or not? Yin Jun raised his eyebrows slightly. His black eyes reflected the light above his head, and in an instant, it was gorgeous and colorful. Having a child seems not bad. At least it can tie your heart. Since he was already married, his wife's heart should naturally be with him, right? He didn't want a green hat to appear on his head at any time. If a child could do all of this, then why not? With that thought, he possessed her and instinctively kissed her lips. Wait. Xia Jinqi hurriedly dodged, but sadly discovered that Yin Jun had unknowingly forced her into a corner. At this moment, he was crossing an arm and propping himself against the wall behind her, completely trapping her movements. This, could it be the legendary wall dong? When she dodged his kiss, Yin Jun's expression suddenly turned ugly. In his mind, after marriage, she would be his wife. There were some things that he could not do, but he let her do as she wished, not wanting to hurt or scare her. If she hadn't taken the initiative to mention the child tonight, he thought that he might have slept in the study room. But, since she was here, he naturally had no reason to reject her. Have a child. I'll give you anything you want. He coaxed her in a rare low voice, his warm breath spraying on her neck. Xia Jinqi was truly frightened. The marriage, she thought, was just two people living under the same roof. Without love, how could she talk about Xing? She had never even thought about this problem. It was precisely because he was forcing her so hard that she reflexively said, no, impossible. How old was she? She was still preparing to take the postgraduate entrance exam. Her life was just like the rising sun. Everything had just begun. Having a child, that was really too far away for her. He lowered his eyes and said unhappily, nothing is impossible. In less than 3 months, I think it's possible. After he finished speaking, he leaned over again and captured her lips. Xia Jinqi wanted to dodge again, but he took the opportunity to kiss her delicate collarbone. The moist and hot kiss lingered between her skin, bringing a slight electric sensation. This unprecedented sensory shock instantly deprived Xia Jinqi of her mind. Her entire body stiffened, and it was as if her entire body was on fire. That was something that no one had ever done to her. A moment of grievance surged into her heart. She wanted to reach out to push him, but she suddenly felt unable to do so. Her entire body lost strength, and her legs trembled. She was somewhat unable to stand. Finally, he raised his head and kissed her lips. He tasted a hint of salty bitterness. He opened his dark eyes and realized that her face was already covered in tears. It was as if a hole had been dug in her heart, and she was in so much pain that she was suffocating. "Why are you crying?" he asked her in a hoarse voice, his wide palms supporting her delicate little face. Xia Jinqi didn't say anything. She just bit her lower lip stubbornly and lowered her eyes, not looking at him. Could she say that she was scared to tears? Her originally high spirits were scattered by the tears on her face. Yanjun raised his hand to wipe away the tears on her face, and his voice was somewhat indifferent. "Don't forget, we're already married. You should learn to get used to me." Even though she didn't say anything, he could roughly guess what she was thinking. She clearly hadn't figured out what marriage was. What he wanted wasn't a wife in name. What he wanted was a woman who had to accompany him for the rest of his life. In the end, in this marriage, Yanjun had always been the one who was transparent. Instead, it was Xia Jinqi. She seemed to have misunderstood something. She finally dared to raise her eyes to look at him. Her curly eyelashes were still wet, and there were tears on them. Used to him, she was a little slow-witted. She had yet to enter the role of a wife. "You said that you would try your best to fall in love with me. I hope it's not empty words." As if he didn't want to see her continue to cry, he only left these words behind and turned around to walk out of the study. Xia Jinqi stood rooted to the ground in a daze. She had said such words before, but how could you fall in love with someone just because you said so? It was as if it was only now that she was shocked to realize that she was already Yin Jun's wife. The married couple's life, as well as being a husband and raising children, shouldn't she have thought of this a long time ago? Suddenly, she felt that she was a little despicable. When she begged Yin Jun to get married, she said everything, but when she really got married, she didn't dare to do anything. A person lying on the broad bed, until late at night, Yin Jun did not come back. Xia Jinqi habitually insomnia, with big eyes, staring at the beautifully decorated ceiling in a daze. She's still thinking about what Yin Jun said. They were husband and wife, and she should get used to his presence. Yin Jun drove out alone. He did not think that the conversation just now was an argument. He just felt a little bored and wanted to relax. Fang Xiaoan did not escape, was pulled out to drink. The entire bar would not receive any customers tonight. It would only serve Yin Jun and his friends. In front of the spacious bar counter, the bartender wore a black and white vest and skillfully mixed the delicious wine. Fang Xiaoan had just drunk a mouthful of wine and spat it all out. He stared at Yin Jun's livid face in disbelief and asked again, "What did you say? Sister-in-law, she really cried?" Yin Jun, a sharp gaze shot toward a certain someone who was laughing until she was almost out of breath. Yin Jun's hand that was holding the glass wine cup tightened slightly, and a few veins popped out. What I mean is cough, cough, cough. You scared her to tears. Fang Xiaoan finally put on a serious face, held back his laughter, and asked about the cause of the matter. Yin Jun suddenly felt a little regretful. Why did he find Fang Xiaoan to talk about this? What the hell? Yin Jun did not answer, and Fang Xiaoan squinted his peach blossom eyes again. He clicked his tongue in surprise. It shouldn't be. With your face, no woman would say no. Are you too impatient and don't know how to take care of a woman? What do you mean? Hearing that, Yan Jun raised his eyebrows in confusion. Sister-in-law should have the personality of an obedient girl. Think about it. You haven't been in a relationship for 20 years. How long have you been together? The moment you get married, she will definitely be scared by you. Fang Xiaoan, the love guru, had dated countless girls and learned a special skill from them. Mind reading, no matter how difficult a girl was, He could get all of them. Now hearing Yin Jun's words, he knew that sister-in-law was probably too pure. Yin Jun continued to raise his eyebrows. That night at the seaside, she had made a solemn vow. He thought that she had already come to her senses. Judging from the situation in front of him, it seemed that she had not figured out her position yet. Suggestion? Yin Jun asked again. The suggestion is to soften her heart first. For a normal innocent girl, giving her love first is basically okay. Find an opportunity to take her to the hotel, decorate the room, create some romance, give her roses, and drink some wine. Wouldn't everything be logical? Feng Xiaoan fed himself a mouthful of wine in a ruffian manner, speaking of his insights. Wasn't it easy? Hearing this, Yin Jun fell silent. His wrist moved rhythmically, and even the light yellow liquid in the wine glass rippled. It was like his heart at this moment. Feng Xiaoan saw that he hadn't spoken for a long time, so he said to himself, "Otherwise, you two will be innocent forever? A marriage without Xing." Just thinking about it made one's scalp go numb. I just don't want to see her cry. Yin Jun finally spat out a sentence, raised his head, and drank a glass of strong brandy in one gulp. The image of her crying face kept appearing in his mind. His heart felt stifled. Feng Xiaoan clutched his injured heart and lamented, "All right, don't go around throwing dog food at me. I know how deeply you love your sister-in-law. You're thinking too much." Yin Jun smiled coldly. "You still refuse to admit it? Then why are you so good to her? Do you feel sorry for her just because she cries?" Yin Jun was silent for a moment before he said, "She's my wife. Naturally, I feel sorry for her." After he finished speaking, he had already stood up and walked out of the bar. Feng Xiaoan, who was roaring behind him, said, "Pay up before you leave." Without receiving a reply, Feng Xiaoan turned around to look at the bartender. "Put IT in his name. I was fished out in the middle of the night, and I've been enlightened and paid for it. Doesn't that make me an old woman?" She didn't sleep well the entire night. When she woke up in the morning, Xia Jinshi realized that there was another person beside her. She didn't know when he came back, but she didn't notice him at all. The warm morning sunlight passed through the huge glass window and fell on his warm, jade-like face. His breath was light, and his face was handsome. He lay quietly like a beautiful painting. Xia Jinshi turned her body and stared at him, who was sleeping soundly. She had reflected on herself the whole night before, and she finally compromised. Yes, they were already married. She said that she would try her best to fall in love with him and would try her best to maintain this marriage. There were some things that she should be braver about. Yin Jun watched silently under Xia Jinshi's gaze and slowly woke up. The moment he opened his eyes, he met a pair of gentle and beautiful eyes. His thoughts flooded back into his mind like a tide at a certain moment. He looked back at her and was about to say something when he saw her suddenly stand up and lean towards him. Xia Jinshi was so nervous that her heart almost stopped beating. She supported her body with both hands and leaned forward slightly to kiss Yin Jun, who had just woken up. This was the kiss that she should not have avoided last night. She was very young and almost only covered him gently. She did not make any next move, nor did she retreat very quickly. She was a little annoyed and did not know how to move. However, she did not need to think too much, because in the next second, Yin Jun had already grabbed her slim waist with a backhand. Then, he turned over and leaped. In the blink of an eye, he had pressed her under him. Throughout the entire process, no one spoke. They only needed to make eye contact. Xia Jinshi looked at the handsome face hanging above her, and her breathing began to become a little smoother. Is it now? Give yourself to him. In this marriage, play the role of the most real wife. Yin Jun immediately leaned over and kissed her lips. He sucked repeatedly, gnawed and rubbed, until she began to moan. The loose bathrobe was half open due to the intense movements of the two of them. The snow-white crystals stimulated Yin Jun's vision. With a bang, something hot exploded in his head. He stretched out his hand and pulled open her belt. Xia Jinshi closed her eyes and felt his heat. Unfortunately, Yin Jun did not continue. He took 2 rough breaths and suddenly got off the bed. He walked quickly to the bathroom. Xia Jinshi felt as if she had just woken up from a dream. She hugged the blanket and sat up in a daze. Her eyes were somewhat empty. She did not understand why he suddenly stopped. Was it not satisfied? Or was it because he was unwilling? The heat in her body gradually subsided. However, Xia Jinshi sat on the bed for a long time, like a statue. The sound of running water came from the bathroom. It was somewhat ear-piercing. Yin Jun quickly came out of the shower. He had already changed into a brand-new bathrobe. His short black hair was still dripping with water. Seeing that she was still in a daze on the bed, he frowned slightly. "What are you still standing there for? It's getting late." Xia Jinshi only regained her senses slightly when she heard that, and looked at him in confusion. "Today is the day you return home." Yin Jun used a towel to wipe his short hair as he walked around the big bed and walked towards the cloakroom. On the way, he deliberately didn't look at the woman on the bed. But at this time, she took the rare initiative. Xia Jinshi finally came to a complete realization. She didn't have the time to be embarrassed. With an "oh," she hurriedly got off the bed and ran to the bathroom with a flash of smoke. She had almost forgotten that today was an important day for Yin Jun. If she didn't go back on time, she didn't know what the news would write about her. After Yin Jun went downstairs, Xia Jinshi went to the changing room slowly. When she was changing, she saw the bits of strawberries from her neck to her collarbone. Her head exploded, and her small face began to fill with blood. It was so hot. Xia Jinshi quickly took 2 deep breaths and found concealer. She carefully applied it on her neck, afraid that someone would notice. In just a short while, she didn't know how Yin Jun did it. When she went downstairs, she found that Ji Xinyu had already prepared a set of gifts for Yin Jun and Xia Jinshi to bring to the Xia family. The marriage alliance of the noble families valued etiquette more. However, Xia Jinshi didn't expect that Yin Qing was actually in the living room. He was holding an exquisite pastry in his hand and was about to go upstairs. He was probably going to send it to Yin Yucheng. After staying in this house for less than 2 days, Xia Jinshi had almost figured out what kind of existence Yin Qing was in this house. Yin Yucheng was the only one who doted on him. Yin Sheng, Ji Xinyu, and Yin Jun never took the initiative to talk to him. Living under the same roof, even if they met each other, no one would look at each other, and no one would say a word to each other. This kind of situation was exactly the same as when she was in the Xia family. The only difference was that Yin Qing and Yin Yucheng, and she was the only one. She just happened to brush past Xia Jinshi, who was downstairs. At that moment, Yin Qing glanced sideways at her. He did not speak, but his eyes were filled with depression and pain. Xia Jinshi did not dare to look at him again. She only sighed softly and quickly walked down the stairs. Ji Xinyu saw her coming down the stairs and immediately grabbed her hand with a smile. "Jinshi, if you want to go home and stay for a night, it's fine. After all, you haven't left home even after growing up. You must be homesick. Junair has nothing to do these 2 days. Let him accompany you." As she said that, she looked at Xia Jinshi's neck. There was a concealer that had been rubbed off by her collar, and she could just see a little scarlet. This made Ji Xinyu laugh even more happily. She knew that this child was smart and would understand with just a little bit. Xia Jinshi did not notice Ji Xinyu's gaze. She only smiled politely and nodded. She acknowledged him and then followed Yin Jun into the car. There were no bodyguards following them from the front and back. Yin Jun was personally driving. Xia Jinshi sat in the car that cost a few million yuan. She could not help but mock herself. As expected, it could not be compared to a car that cost tens of thousands of yuan. Money was really a good thing. It could buy a luxury car, but it could also buy a marriage. Yin Jun frowned slightly when he noticed the slight mockery on the corner of the woman's mouth. He recalled her staring into Yin Qing's eyes upstairs and felt inexplicably frustrated. His handsome face was gloomy the whole way, and he looked like he was not satisfied with his desires. Even Xia Jinshi felt a different kind of low pressure in the car. She did not say a word, but she cursed silently in her heart. He was clearly the one who stopped first, so why was he angry now? The heart of a man is the needle at the bottom of the ocean. Okay? Outside the Xia family home, many reporters had already been squatting for the entire night. They wanted to take advantage of the time when Yin Jun brought his wife back to the house to properly interview the couple's life. As soon as Yin Jun's car arrived, it was immediately surrounded by an impenetrable crowd. Xia Jinqi looked at the dense crowd of reporters outside the car window and was somewhat dumbfounded. After returning to her home for more than 20 years, this was the first time she had so many people waiting for her. And all of this was because of the man beside her. Xia Jinqi suddenly remembered that last night, she and Yin Jun were easily recognized by passers-by on the street. She was a little confused. Maybe she really married an extremely powerful person. You don't have to say anything. Remember to smile, Yin Jun said with a cold voice. After that, he got out of the car, walked around the front, and opened the door for Xia Jinqi. Xia Jinqi had already put on a smile on her face. She got out of the car obediently and held his arm. Then the two of them opened the gifts for Xia Jitian and Hong Xianglin in the trunk. Reporters kept asking questions around them. Most of the questions were friendly, but there were also some tricky ones. For example, Madam Yin, may I ask what it feels like to be married into a top-tier wealthy family? Xia Jinqi's heart felt a little stifled when she heard this, but a gentle smile still hung on her face as she looked at the reporters in front of her one by one. For a moment, she felt that she had also learned to be hypocritical. She clearly wanted to open her mouth and scold that reporter, but she could only smile. Yin Jun held her hand as they quickly walked through the Xia family's door. There were still people shouting behind them, "Mr. Yin, Madam Yin, no matter what, please say something." Yin Jun completely ignored them. His eyes were indifferent and unfathomable. Xia Jinqi followed by his side. There was no need to say anything. The two of them understood each other. Fortunately, after they entered, the reporters were all blocked outside the door. Their ears finally woke up. After a moment of relief, Xia Jinqi was full of energy again. She walked into Xia family's courtyard as if she was facing a great enemy. Compared to the reporters outside who did not need to be dealt with at all, the ones in the Xia family's residence were the real wolves, tigers, and leopards. Feeling the wetness in the palm of the woman beside him, Yin Jun tightened his grip on her even more. "What are you afraid of? I'm here." Hearing this, Xia Jinqi raised her eyes and looked at him walking beside her. For a second, she suddenly felt that the current him was incomparably tall. It was as if she stayed by his side, she didn't have to be afraid of anything. When the servants in the courtyard saw the two of them, they all bowed respectfully. However, the scale of these people was far from the spectacular sight of the Yin family's hundreds of servants. Xia Jitian had specially taken a leave of absence today and was waiting at home with his children. The servants outside called out, "Fourth miss, fourth son-in-law is back," louder than ever, causing Xia Jitian and his wife to frown at the same time. After all, this son-in-law was not an outsider, but the heir of the Yin Corporation. In the living room, the moment Xia Jinqi and Yin Juanpu entered the room, they saw the following scene. Xia Jitian and Hong Xianglin sat at the top, followed by the eldest, Xia Mingzhu, and the third, Xia Chuanqiu. The second, Xia Tianjiao, knelt in the middle of the living room with her head lowered. There was an eye-catching red mark on her face. Her 5 fingers seemed to be imprinted directly on her cheek. Hearing the voice from outside, her hands were clenched tightly by her side, looking unconvinced. Beside her was a small bucket filled with ice water, which could hold about 3 basins of water. Xia Jitian glared at the unfilial daughter kneeling below. The whole family didn't dare to make a sound because of his anger. Hong Xianglin's face was full of heartache. She wanted to pull her daughter up, but due to Xia Jitian, the head of the family, they could only stand in a stalemate. Xia Mingzhu, the eldest sister, stayed out of the matter. She did not care at all about how Xia Tianjiao would be punished, as if she was not a member of the family at all. Xia Chuanqiu leaned back on the sofa and looked at Xia Tianjiao, who was kneeling on the ground. He was thinking about how to explain this to Yin Jun. He wondered if Yin Jun would be satisfied. Xia Jinqi was completely dumbfounded. What was going on? Yin Jun glanced at her indifferently. There weren't too many fluctuations in his deep eyes. He held Xia Jinqi's hand and walked over. "Father-in-law, mother-in-law." Yin Jun spoke very gentlemanly and handed the gift to the servant beside him. Only then did Xia Jitian stand up. After exchanging a few pleasantries with Yin Jun, He shook his head and sighed. His tone was somewhat self-reproachful. It's all because we didn't discipline him properly that this evil creature did such a ridiculous thing at his sister's wedding. After he finished speaking, he glared at Xia Tianjiao, who was kneeling on the ground. Evil creature, aren't you going to apologize to young Master Yin? Xia Tianjiao trembled from the roar. Half of her face was pale, and the other half was covered in red palm prints. It was very frightening. I'm sorry. When she said that, Xia Tianjiao was looking at Yin Jun. Xia Jinqi, who was beside her, couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. She was the victim, but the focus of the entire family's apology was on Yin Jun. Moreover, Xia Jinqi noticed that her father had just called Yin Jun young Master Yin. This, logically speaking, the Yin and Xia family's marriage was about taking what they needed and standing on equal footing. However, Xia Jitian's words, young Master Yin, brought out the differences between the two families. Yin Jun glanced indifferently at Xia Tianjiao, then turned to look at the dazed Xia Jinqi beside him. He slowly said, "The person you should apologize to is my wife." His voice was calm, but it was threatening without anger. Xia Tianjiao's throat tightened. She stubbornly bit her lower lip, unwilling to admit defeat in front of Xia Jinqi. Xia Jinqi didn't care about Xia Tianjiao's apology. She glanced at the family members and suddenly understood. They were just putting on an act. Putting on an act for Yin Jun to see. Although she didn't know if Yin Jun had put pressure on them, Xia Jinqi understood one thing. The Xia family members were a little afraid of Yin Jun. Xia Tianjiao still didn't say anything. Xia Jitian was so angry that he blew his beard and shouted, "Hurry up and apologize to your fourth sister." I'm sorry. Xia Tianjiao gritted her teeth and finally opened her mouth with a trembling voice. She lay on the ground, her tears falling down. Ever since she was young, her father had never said anything harsh to her, not to mention now, kneeling here like a dog and begging for forgiveness. Xia Jinqi, this is all thanks to you. I'll remember it. One day, I want you to kneel in front of me, trembling. Xia Jinqi couldn't tell what she was feeling at the moment. She didn't feel the pleasure of stepping on those who bullied her, nor did she feel the joy of being noticed by her family again. She suddenly felt sad. Everything in front of her was only done for Yin Jun's sake. In other words, if it weren't for Yin Jun, even if Xia Tianjiao poured acid on her, her parents wouldn't care. Xia Jinqi's days made Xia Jitian feel a little embarrassed. Xia Chuanshu also didn't say anything at the moment and only stood to the side. He was originally trying to get justice for his fourth sister, so it was only natural for his fourth sister to speak up before it could be considered as an end. The entire place was completely silent. It was so quiet that one could even hear a needle drop on the ground. Until, as Xia Jinqi looked around, she suddenly saw a bucket of ice water next to Xia Tianjiao. She raised her hand slightly and pointed at the ice water. "What is that used for?" Xia Tianjiao's body instantly froze. Could it be? Not only Xia Tianjiao, even Xia Jitian and Hong Xianglin were stunned at the same time. Xia Jinqi's guess was right. They were indeed putting on a show for Yin Jun. Their new wife was splashed with ice water on the day of her wedding. If news of this spread, it would hurt Yin Jun a lot. But these days, there was no news about Xia Jinqi at all. It was Yin Jun who suppressed the news. Xia Jitian knew that Yin Jun would definitely not let it go, which was why there was this drama today. Ice water was originally used as a decoration. No one would have thought that Xia Jinqi would suddenly mention it. Yin Jun also looked in the direction that Xia Jinqi was pointing at, his eyebrows slightly raised. Was he prepared to return an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth? However, no one opened their mouth to explain. Only Xia Chuanshu stood out. "Fourth sister, that bucket of ice water was prepared for you." "Me?" Xia Jinqi pointed at herself, looking as if she couldn't believe it. Xia Chuanshu smiled again. "If you still don't feel satisfied, you can throw it all over her. Treat it as an even score." The ice water was arranged by Xia Chuanshu. He had said that he wanted to get it back for his fourth sister. Xia Tianjiao, who was kneeling, turned even paler when she heard this. As for Xia Jinqi, who was the focus of the entire family for the first time, she didn't make a decision quickly. Instead, she looked up at Yin Jun. She suddenly understood something. Yesterday, his attitude was firm, and he insisted that she return home. Moreover, ever since he entered the door, he had been rather calm. So, all of this was arranged by him? To help her vent her anger? Was this considered his gentle side? The corners of her lips curled up into a smile. Xia Jinqi finally opened her mouth. However, before she could finish speaking, Hong Xianglin jumped out, like an old hen, protecting her little chick. Fourth brother. No matter what, she's still your second sister. Do you really have the heart to do that? If you want to pour it on me, pour it on me. Mom! Xia Tianjiao cried out and burst into tears. This made Hong Xianglin's heart ache even more. She hurriedly comforted her. Jiao, don't be afraid. With Mom here, no one can bully you. This scene, in Xia Jinqi's eyes, was filled with mixed feelings. Xia Mingzhu also stood out and said, Fourth sister, that's enough. Today is the day you return home. Don't make the whole family cry. Xia Mingzhu had been by Xia Jitian's side since she was young. She didn't have any impression of her two sisters at home. She wasn't biased and didn't help anyone. She just wanted to end this farce as soon as possible. Xia Jinqi nodded. I sincere. Mom, you don't worry, I won't splash her. Hong Xianglin and Xia Tianjiao were relieved. However, the next second, Xia Jinqi said, then kneel for 3 hours. That's a nice twist on the caught you off guard. In an hour, Xia Jinqi's room. Yin Jun reclined in front of the window, slender fingertip pick a thin gauze curtain. A casual look, you can see that kneeling in the middle of the courtyard of the woman. The sun was high in the sky, and the marble floor was hard enough. Kneeling on it must have been an extraordinary experience. Have you knelt before? He took the coffee that Xia Jinqi handed over and teased her. If she hadn't experienced it before, she probably wouldn't have known such a torturous method. Xia Jinqi was silent for a short while, which could be considered a tacit agreement. However, she didn't intend to bring up the pain. Instead, she put down the tray and changed the topic. Today, was it you who arranged it? Is it important who arranged it? Yin Jun lowered his head and took a sip of coffee. His tone was gentle. Not denying it was equivalent to admitting it. Xia Jinqi stared at him for a moment and asked again, Why is my father afraid of you? Yin Jun's hand froze, and he raised his eyebrows slightly. Do you want to know? Xia Jinqi nodded. She really wanted to know. Yin Junxi smiled, and his big hand wrapped around her waist, pulling her to him. Why don't you tell me first? Why have you been enduring for so many years? Looking at the way she looked just now, she did not look like a weak idiot at all. On the contrary, she even knew what to do. The biggest harm to Xia Tianjiao would be her. If she insisted on splashing the water, with Hong Xianglin blocking in front of Xia Tianjiao, the water would definitely splash on Hong Xianglin. When that time came, Xia Jinqi would not be able to take revenge, and she would be labeled as an unfilial daughter. By choosing to have Xia Tianjiao kneel under the scorching sun for 3 hours, not only would she be able to take revenge, she would also be able to relieve her anger. She could also punish Xia Tianjiao, and Hong Xianglin would not be able to intervene. This wave of counterattack made even Yin Jun gasp in admiration. Xia Jinqi did not struggle. Just as he said, she needed to get used to him. Lowering her eyes, she simply leaned into his embrace and sighed. She originally just wanted to quietly be a sweet and innocent person, but who knew that once she got close to the black-bellied Yin Jun, she would also learn from him. She had a feeling of a fox using the tiger's power. She played with the collar of his shirt and said self-deprecatingly, In the past, I was alone, but now I have a backer. Actually, she had always been unwilling to argue with her family because they were her family. As for today, it was Yin Jun who specially arranged it for her. She did not want to brush off his good intentions, nor did she want to see him angry. She knew that if she did this, he would definitely be happy. For example, at this moment, a smile could always appear on the edge of his lips, unlike the time when he was in the car, where he always had a straight face and the pressure was frighteningly low. Yin Jun's originally hard heart was melted by her rare tenderness. She did not refuse to cater to him, which made his love for her soar. He lowered his head and accurately held her lips, wantonly raping her. Xia Jinqi raised her head and obediently accepted him. Now, she was really starting to get used to him. The hard marble under her knees was so hard that it hurt her bones. Xia Tianjiao carefully used her hands to support her body weight while wiping the beads of sweat from her forehead. The palm print on her face had yet to disappear, and they were both burned red by the scorching sun. What was more hateful was that when she finally adjusted her posture and turned her head, she happened to see the two people kissing in front of the windowsill. She clenched her teeth tightly as Xia Tianjiao stared at the two people, her eyes bursting with a flame of jealousy and hatred. Her father, who had never hit her before, not only gave her a slap today, but also scolded her a few times. He even made her kneel under the scorching sun, so that all the servants in the family could see her. How could she continue to be a person in the future? It was all Xia Jinqi's fault, a good-for-nothing that anyone could bully. If it weren't for Yin Jun, how could she be so arrogant? I'll be waiting, Xia Jinqi. I'll be waiting for the day when you're ruthlessly abandoned by Yin Jun. If you knew this day would come, why did you do it in the first place? I've told you long ago to seize the opportunity to marry a man with power and influence. Now, fourth sister has picked up a huge bargain, right? Xia Mingzhu's voice was filled with mockery as it came from behind. Xia Tianjiao didn't even need to turn his head to know whose voice it was. There's no need to be sarcastic. Didn't you get a divorce too? Oof. She didn't forget that when she was kneeling in the hall just now, this big sister didn't even try to persuade her. She only came here now to see her make a fool of herself. Xia Mingzhu casually tugged at the black coat draped over her shoulders, and a nonchalant smile appeared on her thick pink face. I got half of my ex-husband's assets from the divorce, but what about you? You have nothing, and you're still being humiliated like this. Every word turned into a sharp blade, slicing at Xia Tianjiao's heart. You, knowing that her words had almost provoked Xia Tianjiao, Xia Mingzhu went around to the front of Xia Tianjiao and changed her face. All right, big sister is just casually saying it. Can you still be angry with big sister? Xia Tianjiao was stunned for a moment, and she looked up at Xia Mingzhu, not knowing what to do. She was still mocking her just now, but in the blink of an eye, her attitude had changed. Xia Mingzhu knew very well how to negotiate with others. She would slap them first, and then give them a sweet date, which would be easier to accept. She glanced at Xia Jinqi's room window and leisurely whispered into Xia Tianjiao's ear, "Actually, big sister is on your side. If I don't help you, who else can I help? Help me? You've never cared about me and that trash." Xia Tianjiao spat, clearly not believing it. Xia Mingzhu was not in a hurry and continued, "In the past, I thought that both of you were my sisters and neither of you could be biased, right? But today I see that the fourth girl is really unreasonable and crafty. She actually made her own sister kneel under the scorching sun for 3 hours? In fact, the reason why Xia Mingzhu suddenly started to care about Xia Tianjiao was because she happened to hear the conversation between her father and her third brother when she walked past the door of her father's study. Only then did she know that her third brother had also intervened in everything today. It was all to help Xia Jinqi and to give an explanation to Yin Jun. The biggest obstacle to her wanting to inherit the Xia family from her father was her third brother, Xia Chuanqiu. He was a boy. This was an advantage that was established from the moment he was born. She had no way to surpass him and could only make up for it with ability. All these years, she had worked hard and followed her father conscientiously. Even though she had received her father's affirmation and praise, the increasingly powerful Xia Chuanqiu had also become a stumbling block for her. Naturally, she could not allow Xia Chuanqiu to use Xia Jinqi to build a good relationship with Yin Jun. Therefore, she thought of Xia Tianjiao. She could use Xia Tianjiao to destroy the husband and wife relationship between Yin Jun and Xia Jinqi. In this way, the alliance between the Xia and Yin families would be broken. Let's see if Xia Chuanqiu could continue to work with Yin Jun. When Xia Tianjiao heard this, she did not doubt him. She felt that her big sister could finally share a common enemy with her. She could not be happier. In this family, It was not a bad thing to have one more person who was on her side. One day, I will return everything to her. Xia Tianjiao gritted her teeth. She really wanted to rush upstairs right now, grab Xia Jinqi's hair, and give her a good beating. Xia Mingzhu was very satisfied with the jealousy and hatred in Xia Tianjiao's eyes. Her lips still had a smile on them. She had already leaned beside Xia Tianjiao. Now, there's a good opportunity like this. It depends on whether you are willing to seize it. What opportunity? I heard that when the Yin family came to propose marriage, they wrote Yin Xing's name on the post.